How's it going, everybody? This is Ask Me Anything About Politics. So, if you got any questions about politics, just let me know in the chat, and I will do my best to give you a great answer to your question about politics. I know that politics can be really it's been weird lately. Things are kind of bananas in the world of politics, and so there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of contrary information. There's a lot of fighting. There's a lot of debating. There's a lot of propaganda. And so, where can you go? Where can you go to find accurate information? Where can you go to engage with people in good faith? Well, the answer is right here, everybody. So, questions, throw them in the chat. There's no judgments, there's no roasting, there's no debating. This is not one of those shows where people yell at each other and call each other names because they disagree politically. This is not a show for fighting and trying to own each other. This is just good faith answers to all good faith questions. I know politics can be really confusing, especially if you are new to it, especially if you are just paying attention to it now for the first time because we're in such a weird time politically. And so this is the place where you can get all your answers about what's really going on, what should be going on, what's the responsibility of our politicians, why should you vote, why is our government structured the way that it is. There's no such thing as a dumb question, so you can just put anything in there. Bobby B says, do you think NATO will ever enact Article 7? I'm not sure, Bobby B. Is that the article that says that we all have to go fight with them? I thought that was Article 5. So yeah, let me know if Article 7 is a different thing that I'm talking about. Also, did you get my DM, Bobby B? I was trying to show you what a DM is, and be able to provide you all of that relevant information that I was telling you about the last time you were on the live stream. Alrighty, everybody, welcome to the live stream. Ask me anything about politics. Maybe it is Article 5, but that's the basic idea. I mean, it appears as though Vladimir Putin is interested in starting a war with NATO. I think that I don't know, he's in like a weird pissing contest with Donald Trump, who keeps on telling him to, tamp things down, and then Putin keeps on not tamping things down, and then Trump keeps on escalating the things that he says he's going to do to Russia, and then doesn't ever do any of them. But it's neither here nor there. Yeah, it's a fucking banana situation that Putin has had all this time to kind of like reorganize the economy of his country around just building up weapons and drones and shit like that, and he appears emboldened to send planes close to Alaska and drones into Poland and shit like that. So Pete Hegseth. So sorry. Hold on a second, guys. I apologize. Be right back, everybody. Oi! Ugh. Alrighty, I'm back, everybody. Maybe it was a different Bobby. Oh, that's a bummer. I thought you were the Bobby that was asking me about billionaires and shit, and I was telling that Bobby all about billionaires and how terrible they are, and how the Republican Party is working with the billionaire class, and he was asking me for data on that. Alrighty, back everybody, back indeed. What were we talking about? Louis Pson says, "Why can we criticize our country, but it is a felony to criticize the country that engage in G-side?" The reason why is because Israel is a very powerful lobbying arm called AIPAC that threatens politicians to do the things that they want them to do. AIPAC is extremely well funded, as are a bunch of other, right wing groups like the Heritage Foundation and the Federalist Society. And so, in the interest of keeping AIPAC happy and not, getting a primary challenge, Politicians tend to do work that APAC wants them to do. Alrighty, lovely X-Vamp says, you think he will go to war with anyone? I don't know. Like, Donald Trump was supposed to be this guy who was, like, against starting wars, and now he seems to be starting a war with Venezuela and escalating tensions with Russia and bombing Iran and shit like that. So, yeah, I don't fucking know. I don't think it's going to be a world war, but I would not be surprised if, there was some sort of official hullabaloo between America and another country. Yeah, I mean, Pete Hegseth did just call all of the generals into a meeting in Virginia that is ringing alarm bells with everybody who is providing oversight for the military. So, yeah, I mean, fucking, okay, EIR Tepa says October 7th. I don't know what you mean by that. That's not a question. Alrighty, let's see here. Scrolling up, yeah, Bobby B. We were talking about Putin and Trump, and yeah, I forget where we're going there. But yeah, Pete Hegseth just called the generals together, so maybe they are discussing, potentially going to war with Russia or Venezuela or some shit like that. Birdman, I sometimes have people come up, but it's really random, and so you just kind of have to stick around. Keep your request in, and then potentially I will accept it. Mark Anthony says, "Is it worth it fighting for this country now if we are divided?" Of course it is. Absolutely. We should always be fighting for a better country and a better life for our fellow citizens. Obviously I want to clarify that I mean nonviolent resistance, but yeah, there's tons of work to be done to reunite the country, to have better political leaders, to have better systems of government, to just generally make life better for everybody. But it only gets that way if we do the work, because the billionaire class is not interested in making life better for us. They're only interested in making life better for themselves. What's up, Average Joe? Good to see you. Happy Friday to you. Luipson says, can you explain social hegemony? I don't know if I can, actually. I'm pretty sure I know what that phrase means, but it's not on the top of my fingers, top of my noodle. Jackie says, why is the American government so involved in the political crisis in Haiti? I actually, oh boy, a lot of these questions are going over my head today. I'm feeling bad about that. Let's see here. John Bradley says, what do you think about the U.S. approach to the Ukraine situation should be? I mean, I think that we, along with all of our NATO allies, should be providing Ukraine with all of the necessary assistance to repel their Russian invaders. I don't think it is up to America to decide what an acceptable peace treaty is with Russia. I think that's up to the Ukrainians, but I certainly think that we can, let them know what our preference is as far as like ending the fighting as quickly as possible. But I also don't think that Vladimir Putin is a good faith actor. I don't think that he is intending on ending this war until he is forced to. James says, misinformation and conspiracy theories about Charlie Kirk assassination is wild. Yeah, 100%. Y'all got to be really careful about what you believe that you see on social media and the internet. Mark Anthony says, is Charlie Kirk a real patriot? Honest answer, please. No, I do not believe that Charlie Kirk is or was a patriot. I do not believe that anybody should have murdered him. I believe that violence, including political violence, is not productive and detrimental to our culture. But no, Charlie Kirk was a very bad person, and so yeah, definitely not a patriot, I would say. Dustin Daly says, when should America do a Nepal? I mean, I think that America should do a non-violent version of what Nepal did. So like, a massive general strike would be cool. Maybe all of us voting would be cool. Stack OTB says, China's edge on manufacturing is going to exponentiate with AI implementation. I mean, yes, and also the Trump administration is basically giving all of this to China. They're giving all of our trade partnerships away. They're giving all of our alliances away. They are giving all of our technology away. Like we are serving the future to China on a plate thanks to the Trump administration. Arlid says, what is strategy to handle the debt? Tax the rich, use that money to ease the financial burden of the 99%. When they start spending money again because they feel more comfortable, then we will have more tax revenue, which will actually decrease the deficit. It's pretty easy. Cleo with a conscience says, why are there so many uneducated people here? Well, the Republican Party for a long time has been waging a war against education. They have been defunding public education. They have been denouncing people that get an education as indoctrinated. They have been going hard against higher education, colleges, universities, professors. They say you can't trust experts anymore. And so it has devalued the idea of getting an education, of being an expert. And so it's part of their culture to denigrate education, and it is also part of their policy to defund education and use the power of the government to punish higher education. They don't care says, what are you even saying? I'm answering questions about politics. Stack OTB says, older, much more culturally rich nations, America deserves its death. I mean, I don't think so. I mean, we are a nation of 330 million people. It would hurt a lot of people if America, just descended into chaos. Nelson Vasquez, why don't they get rid of Trump? If was Obama, he would have been out. The reason is because the Republican Party politicians believe in advancing their own power and authority over protecting the country and doing their job as representatives of their citizens. They're derelict in their duty. They should be a check on the Trump administration and on the Supreme Court, but they are not doing that. They are just throwing up their hands and saying, yeah, whatever Trump does is fine. Whatever the Supreme Court does is fine. We're cool with whatever, man. They're either scared of Trump or they're on board with his fascist agenda. And both of those, I think, are perfectly valid reasons to never vote for a Republican politician ever again. James says, I support the Republican Party, and I even can agree there are some ridiculous things that they are doing. What do you think is a positive about the Republican Party, James? Because I'm not shy about my opinion about the Republican Party. I think they have zero credibility and their platform is terrible, but let's get into a discussion. Let's get into an engagement about it. Dustin Daly says, should we replace all our current politicians? I mean, we can replace as whatever politicians you want to replace. The mechanisms exist. There are primary elections and there are general elections. So I don't believe that there should be like a purge where we throw all of the current politicians into the ocean or some shit like that. But we can replace all of our politicians. The mechanism already exists. John Bradley says, have you heard anything about Pelosi's challenger for her current seat? I've heard a bunch about Saikat. I love him. I think he's great. I don't know why he's not getting the same kind of heat that Mamdani was getting. But yeah, I think that if you live in San Francisco, you should go out there and you should campaign with Saikat and, try to get some cool, young, progressive blood into that House district, my guy. Everybody loves him that meets him. They just don't know about him. He doesn't have as much, as much attention on him as Mamdani did. Justin Daly says, nah, just force them to leave and do a mass revote. That doesn't really seem logistically plausible, Dustin Daly, but I guess I admire your passion. John Bradley says, what are his positions? I mean, I couldn't tell you more specifically than that he is a progressive who used to work for AOC. And so, I'm assuming that his policies reflect my own. That Dungeon Punk says, thoughts on this potential imminent shutdown? This is the Republican Party holding America hostage to try to become more of an authoritarian dictatorship. And the Democratic Party is refusing to fund turning our government into a fascist dictatorship. And, it is going to hurt people. But the Democratic Party was not given enough power to actually stop anything that Trump is currently doing. And so it is up to the Republican Congress, and they have shown that they are completely derelict in their duty. And it is up to the judiciary, and they have proven that they are on Team Trump. And so the only people that are left to do something about this is you and me, and it's a bummer. It's, it's either shut down the government or continue to fund an authoritarian government. And it's, the Democratic Party is trying to make the best of two really bad options. Val says, Trump told his minions not to speak to Democrats, and they did such. Pretty spineless. Yeah, they're not negotiating. They're not working with Democrats. Some people would argue that shutting down the government would make it easier for Trump to dismantle the kind of government agencies that he's been illegally trying to shut down this entire term. But, continuing to fund this decline into authoritarianism, like, that just doesn't seem like a viable path forward, Let's see here. already did that one. All right, slow question day today. Average Joe PD says, with you being a comedian, I'm assuming you're a First Amendment advocate, but I'm also sure you have your own personal lines that you won't cross. For example, would you be the type to point out how similar Laura Loomer and Jigsaw look? Yeah, I mean, that is one of my lines. Like, I try not to make fun of people's physical appearance or their race or anything like that. Yeah, I mean, I believe in the First Amendment in its actual, you know, in its actual, definition, which is that the government is not allowed to use their power to punish speech. And there is a whole slew of comedians who have decided that anybody criticizing their speech or any private company exerting consequences on people for their speech equal First Amendment violations. And that's just not the case. What is the case is the Trump administration putting pressure on ABC to cancel Kimmel. Like, that's a violation of the First Amendment. Getting kicked off of Twitter is not a violation of the First Amendment. Getting fired from your job because you said the N-word too many times is not a violation of the First Amendment. Alrighty. Rusty Trombone says, I miss Charlie Kirk, man. I mean, I don't think that he should have got murdered, but, he was also a pretty bad person. Rusty Trombone says he disrespected Charlie Kirk. It wasn't a free speech issue. He didn't disrespect Charlie Kirk. I don't really know what you're talking about, Rusty Trombone. I gotta be honest, I don't really think that you are here in good faith, my guy. Dragon says, watching society moving towards fascism and nationalism in the USA. I mean, you shouldn't just. Are you in a different country, Dragon? Because if you're an American, then don't just watch. Like, do something to help stop it, my guy. M. Rose says, where do you get your info? I'm interested in sources. I try to get my information from as many different sources as I can. I use news aggregators like Ground News and the Reddit news feed. The only thing that I don't read is right-wing news because data has shown that right-wing news is something like only 20% accurate. It is the least accurate type of news that you can check out. So, there's no real bad way to get the news unless you're getting it from right-wing sources. El Q Coelho says, I think the assassination was a form of speech. It communicated something about how society feels. But that is not a protected form of speech. You are not allowed to infringe on other people's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so, yeah, I do not believe that murdering somebody with a sniper rifle counts as free speech. They don't care says, liberal indoctrination. That's not what this is. I mean, if you think I'm saying things that are inaccurate, then let me know and we can discuss. LCU says, not saying protected, but it sent a message. But it sent a bunch of different messages. It sent the message that we don't like that kind of hate mongering, but it also sent the message that the left is the party of murder and the government should use any means necessary to crack down on dissenting voices from the left. And people that are accurately describing the Trump administration as fascist are the ones that are ginning up this violence. So that's one of the other problems with violence, is that there's no clear message behind it. It can get co-opted by bad faith actors like the way the Trump administration and the Republican Party currently is. Emo says, so far I've heard your personal opinions and little facts. Well, everything I'm saying is a fact unless I say it's my opinion. Jimmy88 says, how do politicians like Nancy Pelosi get rich off of us? It's weird how basically every Republican in government is also doing insider trading, but for some reason nobody has a problem with that, only Nancy Pelosi. There are speaking fees, you can write a best-selling book, and also you can do insider trading. And so if you have a problem with that, then you should vote for Democrats, because the Republican Party is currently in charge of all three branches of government. They have Josh Hawley and a whole bunch of Democrats who have a bill to make it illegal for people in government to trade stocks. And they even wrote a carve-out in there that said that Donald Trump can trade stocks still, but that people in Congress can't. And the Republican Party is still not passing that bill. Seems like they don't really give a shit about people in government doing insider trading, if you ask me. Rusty Trombone says, Dems are not going to win the office anytime soon. Congratulations, Rusty Trombone. That's not a question, so you're out of here. Also, I fucked your mom. I gave her Rusty Trombone. James says, rage baiting towards the opposite side isn't productive. I completely agree with that, and that is not what I'm doing here. Greg likes Stratocaster says, this guy isn't a thinker. He is feeding himself only what he wants to hear. That's not true. I get my news from multiple sources. Josh Allschuler says, politicians should get paid more. I don't think so. I think that every politician should get paid what the poorest person in their district gets paid. Chopped Grandpa says, are you a Republican or a Democrat? I am a Democrat. Brad says, do you think J.D. Vance is pretending to like Trump in order to run for president in 28? 100% without question. The only honest thing that he said in my memory is when he called Trump a schnazi. Greg says, you just said you didn't read right-wing sites. Yes, because data has shown that they are not accurate. So what would I be gaining by reading right-wing sites? Only misinformation and propaganda. Alrighty, let's see here. Alright. Okay. They don't care says all Dems do it, LOL. There are more Democrats that don't do it, but I'm also less interested in that than I am in who is trying to stop it. And the answer to that question is Democrats. So you can miss me with that nonsense. Rusty Trombone. Alright. Block 2. Dan Blackwood says politicians should get paid more. I think we found Ted Cruz's burner account. That's really funny. Ryan Carter says, who's going to be the Democratic nominee for 28? I do not make those kinds of predictions, but I would say, are you excited about the midterms in 26? That's where we should be focused. James says, thoughts on Destiny? I think that anybody who has a large platform that is using it to engage with people in politics is a net positive, especially if they're coming at it from a left-wing perspective. I don't agree with everything that Destiny says. Sometimes I think that he is... it is unproductive the way that he debates with people, but I do still think that he is a net positive. The same with Dean and Hassan and everybody that's in that sort of like popular leftist spaces. Alrighty, No Diggity says, how likely is a civil war? Probably unlikely, I would say. Dan Blackwood says, thoughts on Destiny's Child? Oh, they're nothing but bangers. Spaceman with a laser sword says, I support a one-state solution, and that solution is restoring the Christian kingdom of Jerusalem. What a weird thing to say, Spaceman with a laser sword. Don't you think that people should be free to practice whatever religion they like? Let's see here. They don't care, says Obama allowed the media to lie to the people. That is not a question, and so you are out of here. I do not care if you have different political opinions than me, but actually ask a question, be part of the conversation. John Bradley says, people are against RFK Jr., however, it's very apparent that the FDA and CDC have failed. How do you reform? I mean, the FDA and the CDC have made mistakes, but by and large, they have been doing the work of keeping Americans safe and healthy. I'm sure that there is some influence over those agencies by billionaires and giant corporations, but that's not going to stop if you guys keep on electing Republicans. Republicans are just allowing that to go on more and harder to find and stop and shit like that. They're making it more legal. Really, but yeah, I would say that the FDA and the CDC before Trump got his second term, leagues better than it currently is. Okay, let's see here. Average Joe says Destiny is being investigated for PDF file stuff. Is he really? That's disgusting, man. That is a fucking bummer, man. I guess I really hope that's not true, but if it is, fucking leave, Destiny. Get the fuck out, man. All right, scrolling down the bottom. Nicholas Thompson says, why is the right so obsessed with trans people? The right needs demagogues. They need people to blame problems that are caused by the billionaire class on in order to distract people and trick them into voting for Republicans. And so trans people are just one of the new pools of people that they claim are ruining America. EM9076 says, what positive contributions are you doing for your surrounding community? I'm heavily engaged in politics. I do a lot of voter outreach. I do a lot of canvassing. I do a ton of work. Ready. Let's see here. Ryan Carter says, why is it so important for trans story time to be in kids' libraries? I believe you're talking about drag queen story hour. And I don't think it's important specifically for that. I think it's important that communities of people read to children, and the drag queen community is one such community of people. They are delightful entertainers. I think it's really interesting. I think it's really important that we introduce children to all the different types of people that they might encounter in their lives, so that people don't have a knee-jerk gut reaction to seeing a drag queen or a trans person and think that there's something weird or wrong with them. Truthbrick says, is it time for a change in politics for the country? I think there are plenty of changes that we can make to our politics that would be really, beneficial and productive. That Dungeon Punk says, culture warfare keeps class consciousness from coming up. That's why they go after the LGBTQ. You're 100% right about that Dungeon Punk. Truthbrick says, thoughts on the bipartisan system? Not perfect, but definitely not responsible for every problem that people ascribe to it. A lot of the criticisms of the two-party system are a little hyperbolic, in my opinion, when people should really be more upset about things like campaign finance laws or the Republican Party's campaign finance violations and their cheating to win elections and stuff like that. If you want to not just have the two parties, then you need ranked choice voting. Otherwise, third parties end up just being spoiler candidates. And the Republican Party is hostile to the idea of ranked choice voting. So again, if you want a more than two-party system, you have to vote for the one party that is currently able to stand up to the Republicans and is willing to advance ranked choice voting. Scrolling down, James, that's not a productive thing to say. Ask a question or I'm going to boot you. Dana says, can you name 2 positive things that have been done by both parties in the last 12 months? So Dana, a couple of things about that question. Number one is I object to people asking me to say nice things about the Republican Party as, I don't know, like proof that I am a unbiased and bipartisan person or something. I don't think it's necessary to have to find a nice thing about somebody who is stabbing me in the throat. If somebody is robbing me blind, I don't need to then go on the internet and say, but I mean, they had nice eyes, at least. It doesn't seem productive to me. It seems like it is creating an atmosphere of both parties are equal. There's no difference between the two of them. There's some good things and bad things on both sides, which is something that I fundamentally disagree with. If you look at the history of the parties, if you look at the politicians, if you look at the platforms, there's a very clear distinction between the Democrats and the Republicans, and the Democrats, though flawed, are light years better than the Republican Party. And as far as trying to find something good that the Democratic Party has done, like they're out of power right now. I would need to go down to the state level, and I am not as up on the state level, policies and whatever work that they are currently doing in order to facilitate that. Average Joe says innocent until proven guilty, but maybe distance yourself. LOL. I mean, I don't know the dude, so there's no worry that we're going to be sharing a podcast together anytime. Bobby Tom says, should run for president when I'm 35. Sure, why not? Mike Green says, why do you think Trump is pushing for a government shutdown? Trump is hostile to the idea of a functioning government. He is part of the billionaire class that wants people to suffer, and shutting down the government makes people suffer so that they become more desperate. That is what the billionaire class wants. They want us to be so busy just trying to survive that we can't threaten their power structure. Additionally, Trump is trying to turn the American government into more of a fascist dictatorship. And if there are fewer people working within the government, there are fewer people that could potentially stop him at all of the various, roads that, he would want there to be no blockades on. So yeah, there is an argument to suggest that the shutdown would assist him in furthering his fascist agenda. But I think it's probably the better of the two really bad options that the Democrats have right now. Ready. What's up, Lauren? Good to see you again. M9076 says, could being biased be counterproductive for change? I think so. Yeah, it's important to be open-minded no matter what side of the political spectrum you're on. Dana says, follow on. Do you feel there are any Republican politicians that you would actually support? No. I mean, what is the Republicans' platform besides tax cuts for the rich? Like, I honestly don't know. It's tax cuts for the rich, making pregnancy more dangerous for women, treating immigrants horribly, even if they are here legally, even if they're citizens, denying that climate change exists, propping up fossil fuel companies, cutting regulations that make it so that companies can't poison us with runoff from their factories. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand why I need to support any of those people. If you're asking me, like, who are the best ones, I would say any of the ones that have been brave enough to actually stand up to Trump that are currently not even in government anymore, because they got shooed out by the MAGA Republican Party. People like, Mitt Romney or Jeff Flake or Adam Kinzinger or Liz Cheney, thank you, Mike Green. Quizzling the Magnificent says, can't wait, lefty. I don't know what that means. Just Sushi Cat says, thoughts on the 100% increase on pharmaceutical imports on October 1st? I don't know what Trump's justification is for it. I only know that it is going to continue to be a hindrance on the general population of America that is struggling to survive, currently struggling to survive. He is going to make everybody's prices continue to go up. He is making inflation worse. He is making price gouging worse. He's just doing bad things that hurt people, from 1,000 different angles. Alrighty, let's see here. Dan Blackwood says shutdowns sow distrust and disillusionment of the government, which always benefits Republicans. That is also accurate. Not showing my pretty face says the justification for tariffs was like national security and other things like that descriptive. Yeah, it's all lies. It's all bullshit. Amy says, just join. What do you make of this meeting of the generals that Hegseth has called? I don't know, but every scenario that I can think of is terrifying. Like, are we preparing for some sort of incursion against Venezuela, against Russia? Are we talking about sending the American military into other American cities? Like how far down the rabbit hole are we going? Like, is this part of a military coup attempt? Like, I don't fucking know, ma'am. This is the reason why you need oversight and fucking reporters that actually report on the news instead of just saying whatever Pete Hegseth tells them to fucking say. I don't know if you guys saw that story, that Pete Hegseth is saying that reporters have to run all of their articles by the military before they publish anything. And it's like, well, that kind of defeats the purpose of having reporters. Don't you think? Dan Blackbird says we'll find out on Signal. Yeah, for real. Right, Nacho My Pretty Face says pizza party with generals, perhaps, like how corporations reward employees. Yeah, they're probably just doing like trust exercises in the forest and shit like that. Some says you're too young to know life before Carter's trade agreement. That is accurate. That is accurate. But I'm not too young to know what life was like before Trump came on the scene and the way that politics were before the Republican Party lost their mind because we elected a black president. Dayglow Ginger says, doesn't sound good to have them all gathered in one place. I don't think they are literally all in one place. I think some of them are zooming in and stuff. Dana says, U.S. peacekeepers going to Ukraine is an interesting take on the gathering of generals, admirals. I already said, Dana, that I don't know what's going on. I'm just saying, like, these are the solutions. These are the possibilities that I could think of, and they're all terrifying. But it could be something else. Alrighty. Chopped Grandpa says, has there ever been a president in U.S. history idolized the way that some of these people idolize Trump? Probably. I don't know. But, I don't know. I'm not a historian, so that's not really my area of expertise. I will just say that in my lifetime, I have never been so terrified of a politician's fan base. Alrighty. Some says 1950s and 60s, life was so much better. You mean like when the marginal tax rate was 90% for the richest Americans? Cleo with a conscience says, to name it, General Squid Games is beyond disgusting to me. General Squid Games? Oh, so like they're firing people that aren't loyal to the Trump administration? That makes sense. Alrighty. Some says 1950s and 60s life was so much better. I mean, not for black people and women. You should probably keep that in mind also, and gay people as well. Scott Clyra says, how about paying CIA members to quit? Paying in rubles. I'm not sure what you're talking about, but boy, oh boy, does that sound scary, Scott. Volty says, yes, Shitler. What a weird thing to say, Volty. All right, everybody, welcome to the live stream. This is Ask Me Anything About Politics. My name is Jarrett, and I'm here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics. There's no such thing as a dumb question. This is not the place for fighting. This is not the place for debating or roasting. It is just engaging in politics in a productive way so that people can be more informed, people can get more involved in their communities and in volunteer organizations to try to make this a better country. Some says American that didn't need 2 incomes to live. Yeah, it was better back then because rich people weren't flying around on private fucking jets, eating caviar 3 meals a day while Americans were dying on the streets, I mean, what you're complaining about, some, is the result of the billionaire class fucking everybody over and taking all of the monetary gains that we've experienced over the last 80 years or so. Volty, he was talking about American politicians, Volty. But yes, 100%, that is accurate. Alrighty, let's see here. Storm is coming. Says, are we going to be able to stop Donald Trump's authoritarian rule? We are. Storm is coming if people like you and me do the work. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done. We need a lot more people to do the work. So I hope that you are an activated American citizen who is actually doing the work. Emo says, would focusing on independent candidates be beneficial for future elections? I don't think so. Independent candidates do nothing but spoil elections for better candidates. I have seen 0 third parties that are actually doing things correctly, except for the Working Families Party, and they are not running presidential candidates. They are running people in local races, and they are supporting Democratic candidates, which is exactly how you build support and infrastructure for your party. Some says Carter made China agreement, Clinton signed NAFTA, WTO, second China agreement. Clinton destroyed most factories in the South. Some, I don't think that what you're saying is accurate. I think that you are purposefully ignoring the role that the billionaire class has in stealing all of the economic gains from the 99%. If you don't ask a question, I'm going to boot you because I'm honestly getting tired of knocking down all of your propaganda. Ooh, ready. Let's see here. Not showing my pretty face says thoughts on the Comey indictment. It is just one more massive red flag that the Trump administration is using the power of the government to influence the judiciary to gin up fake indictments against people that he does not like. And it's happened to James Comey today. It could happen to any one of us tomorrow. Even if these get laughed out of court, they are still something difficult that people will have to deal with, and that is terrifying. It is terrifying that he is continuing to escalate things towards an authoritarian direction, and that is just like the latest shocking example of unconstitutional authoritarian behavior from the Trump administration. Thank you, Rena. You beat me to it. Average Joe PG says, you say no roasting, but what if it's a public figure that really deserves it? I mean, I don't think that we need to hold quarter against politicians or people with like massive platforms. I'm only saying that I don't go hard against Republican voters because they're just people like you and me who are trying to live their lives. Some of them, you know, are rich assholes who vote Republican because they want to stay rich or get richer. Some of them are people that are like unabashedly racist and misogynistic or homophobic, and they're like, yeah, Republicans will hurt the people that I don't like, so I don't give a shit that they're fucking over my life in order to do that. But there are a lot of people that just got, you know, they got tricked. They live in specific communities that don't allow contrary information to get in. And so I don't believe in further escalating the fight between the left-wing voters versus the right-wing voters, or even the far left voters from the centrist left voters. I believe in focusing all of our ire on those who are in positions of power, the billionaire class, the Republican Party, Republican talking heads like Ben Shapiro and Benny Johnson, etc., etc. Fast Guy Ness says, is Charlie Kirk secretly alive? I do not believe so. Dan Blackmore said, a strange aspect of this is that Trump probably would have never been elected in 16 if not for Comey. Yeah, that is one of many things that broke his way in order to slide the 80K votes that he needed to win that election. Emily in the City says, good for you. Help me coexist with these people. I'm blue in Texas. Yeah, you know, Emily, I hope you're doing the work. You know, I've seen you here before. I know you're probably doing the work. Average Joe says, I assumed as much considering you let my Jigsaw comment go through. Wanted to be 100% sure, though. Yeah, I still try not to make fun of people's appearances just because it's you know, it's low-hanging fruit. It is, and it's a trap that the right baits for us in order to quote-unquote prove that people on the left are hypocrites. Because they call us ugly. They say all the women on the left are disgusting, fat, blue-haired lesbians with tons of piercings and acne. And then they go and have absolutely fucking disgusting-looking people be their president and shit like that. And it causes us to want to be like, you think we're ugly? Fucking look at that guy. And then they go, hey, see, look, they're fucking fat shaming and making fun of people's appearances and stuff like that. So, you know, etc., etc. Alrighty, let's see here. Emily in the City says, I'm trying. Any tips? Please help. They're everywhere. Thank you. Have you checked out the Discord, Emily in the City? Because I got a lot of suggestions there. At the very least, it's a really good place to get in touch, and then, you know, we can converse about getting you more involved. Siege94 says, let's say you're on the line 50-50. Tell me why I need to vote left without bashing the right. The left has a better platform than the right. The left is the platform for the 99%. The right just cuts taxes for the billionaire class. The left has a better track record of actually making Americans' lives better. The right has more of a track record of crashing the economy and helping increase the divide between the billionaire class and the rest of us. They're destroying the middle class. If there's a specific policy that you would like me to take the Democratic perspective on, siege ya, I am happy to do that more specifically, but those are my broad strokes reasons for why people should only vote for Democrats and never vote for Republicans. Dan Blackbird says, "Are you saying Rob Schneider isn't a supermodel? I mean, he's a very attractive fella. You know, you could do worse." Fletch Lives Again says, "What are the advantages of shutting down the government?" Um, I think a lot of it is messaging. A lot of it is the Democratic Party saying to the American people, the Republican Party is closing down the government because they refuse to do anything to make your health care less expensive. The Republican Party is shutting down the government because they do not care that you get hurt so long as billionaires get their tax cuts. The Republican Party is shutting down the government because they don't think that they should have to help you, that they should only have to work for the billionaire class. And it's going to be a painful thing. And the messaging of the Trump administration is turning America into a fascist dictatorship, and we refuse to be a part of funding that. We are yelling and screaming about how these are dangerous times, that this is different, that what Trump is doing is not normal, and that it is extremely dangerous. And so to then continue to fund that government seems inaccurate. It doesn't seem like when we are yelling and screaming about how bad things are, that we're being sincere. And so, they seem to be holding the line, and I appreciate them for doing that. Dan Blackbird says, Rob Schneider looks like a night janitor at a hospital who got fired for touching comatose patients. No comments. Ali N says, do they actually need the Democrats to avoid a shutdown? The Republicans are in power. Yes. So in order to pass a continuing resolution, they would need to avoid a filibuster. And in order to avoid a filibuster, you would need 60 votes. They do not have 60 votes. You can use reconciliation for things that are involved with the economy, but the things that they're trying to pass in the spending bill, not all of them do have to do with the economy. And also, they kind of used up their reconciliation once already. I believe you only get like one or two a term. I could be wrong about that. But yes, 100% they need Democrats. The only way that they could pass a funding bill without Democrats would be to vote to eliminate the filibuster, which they may or may not do. I don't put anything past this Republican Party. Alrighty, let's see here. Emily in the City says, also Trump gives us way too much to mock and call out. We don't have to go after looks. Completely agree. Yeah, there's a lot of other things to discuss. What's up, Mia? Good to see you again. Kim Hazlitt says, are there any Democrats we need to pressure that you could see folding? I don't know. Like, I haven't really been keeping up on who's a hard no on funding the government versus the soft no's or the soft yeses. But if you have Democratic reps, give them a call and see where they stand, and then tell them how you feel and how you would prefer for them to vote. Mr. R says eliminating the filibuster would backfire on them in the future, so they don't want to do that. Mr. R, there are certain people in the Republican Party who are governing as though they don't have to worry about elections going forward. I think that part of this has to do with their belief that the Trump administration is going to be very successful in their fascistification of America, in capturing our electoral systems, in capturing our information environments, in performing massive campaign finance violations, knowing that no one's going to hold them accountable for it. And I think that it is a bet that has paid off for them many times in the past. Like, they have fucked things up so many times in the last 20 years, and America keeps on voting for them for some fucking reason. And so they have learned the lesson: we can do whatever we want, and we will never suffer any consequences for it. And so I'm desperately hoping that they are wrong, but they have been right about that in the past, unfortunately. Mia Zelvi Adventure says, what's happening if they shut down the government? Trump won't negotiate with anybody. Basically, anything that the government funds is going to be inaccessible. Public parks will be inaccessible. Staffs will be whittled down to skeleton crews. So if there are any issues with things like getting Medicare reimbursements or welfare payments or Social Security payments or anything like that, it'll be really hard to get people on the phone to help you out with that. There are a ton of knock-on consequences to shutting down the government that hurt the American people, but those are just the examples that I could think of off the top of my head. Alrighty, excellent block, Rena. You're doing the Lord's work. Okay, Sunflower Sunshine says, why do people always choose a side and act like it is their personality and identity? I don't think that people always choose a side and act like it is their personality and identity. Like I feel very passionate about, progressive policies and politics in general, but I don't claim that that is my entire personality. I think there are definitely people out there that do that, and I think that we are all striving for meaning and being able to define ourselves somehow. And some people do that by becoming cosplayers or like massive Star Trek fans, and other people do that by buying a ton of Trump merch. We're always looking for for ways to warm ourselves against the cold emptiness of space. Alrighty, let's see here. Emily in the City says Pam Bondi followed instructions on the accidental tweet the other day, indicting his political enemies. That is 100% accurate, Emily in the City. We are watching lawfare happen. We are watching fascism happen, and it is really terrifying. I really hope that people are heeding my call to be activated at stopping this, because otherwise we're fucked. Otherwise, it's going to continue spiraling into autocracy. Man Horalal Nigel says, what are we going to do about the money problem? So there's only one party that is trying to get money out of politics. There's only one party that is trying to eliminate the gap between the rich and the poor. There is only one party that gives a shit about the working class. It is the Democratic Party. The only way that we solve any of these financial problems, be it stock buybacks, monopolization, income inequality, the inflated cost of food and medicine and housing, senators trading stocks, loopholes for the rich. The only way we're going to solve these problems is if we vote in enough Democrats for them to actually pass some legislation to protect and change those laws. That's the only way. That is the only way. Unless we, the people, are able to exercise our power more efficiently by doing things like general strikes and boycotts. But, the American people are not as activated as they should be. Dayglow Ginger says, do you know if there's anything to stop him from pardoning all of them when leaving office? There is not. Dayglow Ginger. The only thing that he can't do is, I'm 99% sure that this is accurate, the only thing he can't do is get rid of any state charges. So if somebody is, not convicted of a felony, but instead of a state crime, then, the punishment will be less severe, but Trump cannot pardon people who are found guilty of state indictments, I guess. Buffalo says, is there any truth in the Taylor Swift tax? I haven't heard anything about Taylor Swift tax. Joe Man on TikTok says, thoughts on AIPAC? AIPAC is a far right-wing lobbying organization. They carry a lot of water for Israel. There are many different pockets of AIPAC around the country, so some of them are worse than others. When they decide they don't like a politician because they are standing up to Israel or not taking AIPAC money, then AIPAC uses their vast resources to make sure that politician does not get reelected. The streets is littered with the bodies of politicians that tried to stand up to Israel, tried to stand up to AIPAC, and AIPAC came after them. So I give up politicians a lot of leeway for taking AIPAC money just to stay competitive, but I understand which party is the party that AIPAC wants in power, the Republicans, and which party AIPAC is trying to influence when they get into power, the Democratic Party. So yeah, if you want AIPAC to have less power, then you need to vote for people that are not taking AIPAC money or are open to standing up to AIPAC or are just Democrats in general. Because even if you have an AIPAC aligned Democrat in the House or the Senate, you are giving more power to the non-AIPAC aligned Democrats that are in government. Joanne Nari says, why didn't us Dems appoint more Supreme Court justices when we had the chance under Biden? There were not enough senators who were willing to add seats to the Supreme Court. Obviously, there was only one retirement. That's why we got Ketanji Brown Jackson. And I don't know if you guys have been following her, but she's fucking dope as hell. Like 10 out of 10 Supreme Court justice. No notes. Continue. You're fucking eating, girl. But yeah, we had people like Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, whose votes we needed in order to appoint more people to the Supreme Court, and they were hostile to the idea of expanding the Supreme Court. So yeah, there's your answer. Alrighty, let's see here. Mr. R says you can't say far right wing. LOL. APAC has members on both sides. Yeah, but what are they trying to do, Mr. R? They're trying to prop up an authoritarian right-wing government in Israel. They are hostile to Democrats here, even those that pledge to protect Israel. They still try to get Republicans into those seats as well. They go harder against progressive Democrats than they go against centrist Democrats. Like, they are a far-right extremist organization. Alrighty. Excellent questions. Joe Man Oh Man TikTok says, I'm asking for your views on it. I know what APAC is. Well, I guess I don't know if I've made it clear, but I don't care for it. You know, I don't care for any like massively powerful lobbying organizations. APAC, the Heritage Society, the Heritage Foundation, the Federalist Society, like they're all bad. And you know, I understand why people are focusing on Israel because they are currently perpetuating a genocide against the people of Palestine, but it also feels weird when people single out Jewish organizations as opposed to all lobbying organizations. It feels a little like people are being trained into being anti-Semitic, you know. Joe Mama on TikTok. Joe Mama on TikTok. I figured it. Both parties are bought and paid for by APAC. They say jump and the politicians say how high. Yes, but there are more people in the Democratic Party who are standing up to APAC than the Republican Party. The platform of the Democratic Party is not fully aligned with APAC. The platform of the Republican Party is fully aligned with APAC. So yeah, you know, you can miss me with that both sides nonsense, my guy. Joe Annaray says, in a deep red state here, I catch hate constantly for being deep blue, even from my own family. I'm really sorry that you have to deal with that, Joanne, and I hope that you're doing work there still, even, you know, if you're getting flack for it. If you ever feel like it's unsafe to do that, then I hope you will do everything you can to protect your own life and health. And there's other work that you can do if you do feel like it is dangerous to go out there and do work in your community. Let's see here. Joe Mama says that's a half truth. There's plenty of Democrats with undivided support for APAC. It's not a half truth, Joe Mama, because I said there are more Democrats. There are more Democrats. I didn't say all the Democrats. I said there are more Democrats that are standing up to APAC than Republicans. And the platform of the Democratic Party is not fully aligned with APAC. So I don't know how you can say that what I said was a half truth, my guy. Zealous Advocate says, what do you think about the Capital One Discover merger? I mean, I don't know too much about that one specifically. I mean, I'm generally anti-merger because we are suffering from a hyper monopolization in this country where there's no real market competition because every company is basically owned by the same three like mega companies. Joe Mama says, which Democrats are standing up to APAC then? All right, we got Jasmine Crockett, AOC, Brian Schatz, Chris Murphy, Bernie Sanders. There's tons, you know. Half of the Senate voted against sending more money and weapons to Israel. Half of the Democratic side of the Senate, all the Republicans voted for it, but half of the Democratic senators stood up to APAC. Right. Joe Mama says Jasmine Crockett and AOC are part of the swamp. No, they're not. They're great. What in the world are you talking about? Eric Swalwell also says Muzz King. Thank you, Muzz King. Right. Buffalo says Taylor Swift tax is a nickname for a Rhode Island property tax. Can you explain it? I can't. I don't know anything about it. It's the first time hearing about it. Daniel Scott says, do you think AOC will run for president? The whisperings are that she is preparing for either a Senate run or a run at presidency. And I think she's great, so she should do it. Right. Joe Mama says, behind the scenes, they might seem great at surface level. I don't know what you mean by behind the scenes, because they are in front of all of us voting against sending more money and weapons to Israel. So are you saying that behind the scenes, they are not standing up to AIPAC and Israel? Like, is that what you're saying? Because the way they're voting is, you know, it seems more damaging than what they could be doing behind the scenes. Alrighty, let's see here. Average Joe says, do you think it's an important distinction to make whether the organization is Jewish versus Zionist? And if Jewish, whether to speak out against starving an entire population. I feel we have to keep making this distinction so the Israeli government is not seen as Jewish beliefs. I agree with that, but I also don't love the term Zionist because, again, that word can mean a bunch of different things depending on who you're talking to. It can mean that you support the right for Israel to exist, but you don't think that they should be annexing Palestine, or it can mean that you think that Israel has the right to do G-sides against their neighbors because their neighbors are doing mean things to them as well. Yeah, but I definitely take your point as far as like we need to make distinctions between Jewish people and you know extremely well-funded lobbying organizations and the government of Israel that is being led by Netanyahu, who is a right-wing authoritarian. What's up, Jay? Is the U.S. cooked? The U.S. is not fully cooked. I would say we're probably like medium well right now. But and there's never going to be a point where we are fully cooked. There will always be a way for the people to wrest power back from authoritarian regimes. It's just how hard and how dangerous is it going to be? Like, it is less dangerous to do it now than it will be tomorrow. We should be screaming now, or we'll only be able to whisper in the future. And it was safer to do it a month ago, and it was safer even then to do it a month before. So we should do a lot of work now, and we should recruit more people to do work now so that we can stop it from becoming more dangerous to do the work in the future. Okay, Sunny and You says Christians? Question mark? I'm not really sure what you mean by that question. Joe Mama says, I'm just saying be aware of potential Trojan horses. Yeah, Joe Mama, I'm standing with the party that has at least some politicians that are voting against sending money and weapons to Israel, and when they prove to me that they are not actually standing up to Israel, then I will vote against them in the primary for a Democrat who will stand up to AIPAC and Israel. And if that Democrat doesn't win the primary, then I will still vote for that Democrat because having a Democrat in that office will empower the other Democrats that are standing up to AIPAC. All right, Sunny and You says, why do we support Israel so hard? I mean, there's a whole bunch of different reasons, Sunny. Depending on who you're talking to, you could be talking to somebody who is a Christian nationalist who believes that empowering Israel will hasten the rapture. That is a real thing that some elected Republicans really believe, and that is the reason why they are continuing to vote to support Israel in their G side and shit like that. For other people, there are more good faith reasons to support Israel. If you believe in, a Jewish state, where for a people that have been, attacked and marginalized and murdered so many times throughout history, like giving them a place where they can be safe. Having a foothold in that region to try to establish more peace in the surrounding countries, and trying to, enable a more enlightenment type of awakening, another Arab Spring, if you will, in that region, And then there are other people who are just like, hey, funding Israel means that I make a lot of money on my, military industrial contracts, So yeah, there's a bunch of reasons why. Diego Vargas says, are you an atheist? No, I'm an agnostic. My belief is I don't know, and I think we should all be that way. Let's see here. Sunny and You says, may I ask another? Of course, ask as many as you like. Fletch Lives Again says, if MAGA gets ousted in 28, will Trump administration face any crimes or get away? I don't believe that there is a statute of limitations on the indictments that he was hit with before he went into office. There might be certain cases that have legal hurdles to try to restart them. There might be issues with the Supreme Court's immunity ruling that came out during the Biden administration. So yeah, I would say that there's a high likelihood that a government run by Democrats, you will start to see consequences for, Republican politicians who are allowing all of the shit to happen, and Donald Trump and potentially his team as well. I don't think it's 100%, I think there's always things that can go wrong there. But I think there's a high likelihood that is the only way that we're going to see consequences. Alrighty, scrolling on the bottom. Mimi says, why do Republicans ignore Trump's grifting from the White House? For a couple of reasons, Mimi. Number one, there's a group of them that are scared of Donald Trump. They're scared that he will
support a primary challenger, or they are scared that he will tell his base to go do violence against them. Mitt Romney had to hire extra security because he was getting so many death threats from standing up to Trump and voting to remove him from office when he was a senator. There are other Republicans who are on board with what Trump is doing. They believe in turning America into a corrupt kleptocracy, oligarchy, fucking fascist dictatorship, Christian nationalist, white nationalist shit. And so they're on board with what he's doing, even though it is blatantly illegal, unconstitutional, unethical, detrimental to their constituents. Like, they don't care, And just it doesn't matter what you are. It matters if you're too scared to stand up to Trump, or you're too corrupt to stand up to Trump. It doesn't matter. You are part of the problem if you are either type of those Republican politicians. And so I believe that we should unelect every single one of them. Non-violently, of course. We should unelect every single Republican politician. Alrighty. Mimi says, then ours are hypocritical. Yeah, 100% Mimi, but don't let that drive you crazy. Them being hypocritical is a game where they do things that are hypocritical, and then we get really upset and say they're being hypocrites, and then they say, ha, check out these triggered libs. Shit like that. Joe Mama says, I'll wait. Let's see here. I'm looking for whatever question it is that you had. Joe, Palestinians are Semitic. That's not a question. Yeah, I'm not seeing your question, buddy. Phoenix says, do you think the Christian nationalists are going to live with the techno monarchs? I mean, they're part of a coalition right now. With any authoritarian regime, there is always going to be inner conflict for who gets to hold more reins of power. But yeah, they are united in a weird way. Like Peter Thiel, the way that he talks about Greta Thunberg being Satan because she is against climate change, which he views as a mark against technology and science. Like, it's fucking bananas, man. So yeah, there's a lot of overlap there that is really, really concerning. I like you too, Sonny, and you. Diego Vargas says, is Susan Collins the most vulnerable Republican in the Senate? I'm not sure. I haven't really seen the polling on it. That dude, the fucking oyster fisherman who's running against her, he seems dope as hell. So I really hope that he's able to, unseat her. That would be great. But I think that we should be running for every single one of these Senate seats. It is mathematically possible for us to win enough Senate seats that we could remove Trump from office in 2026, 2027. It's unlikely because it would mean a lot of people doing a lot of work to convince a lot of people to vote in certain ways. And even if we did all that work, it's possible that Republican, tomfoolery and lying and cheating might actually, keep us 1 or 2 seats away from our goal. But it's possible, and I think that we should aim for that. I think we should aim for all 67 seats. Alrighty. Let's see here. Mr. R says, anyone see Starmer talking about required digital ID to work in the UK? I have not seen Armour talking about that. American politics really is my specialty. Let's see here. Jay says, do you think we should abolish the Senate? I think either abolish or just rebalance the Senate. So where maybe California has 5 senators and Utah has 1 senator, or statehood for DC and statehood for Puerto Rico, things like that. But yeah, it gives it and the Electoral College and gerrymandering give the Republican Party a massive advantage, an unfair advantage in getting elected, and that has been a disaster. It has been a disaster in having a functioning democracy. All right, everybody. Diego Vargas says we need a really high voter turnout to get a supermajority. We would, but we can do it, Diego Vargas, if you and me and all of our friends and all of their friends and all of their friends and all of their friends are doing the work to get people to vote out Republicans, then we can do it. It's just how much work are we willing to do, and how many people are we able to get to recruit to be able to do the work as well. Alrighty, everybody. I'm going to get out of here because I got a fun hang planned with a good buddy of mine. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all for the questions, for the gifts, for the likes, for the shares. I really appreciate all the support that you guys give me and to this show. I think it's maybe helping a little bit. I hope it is. That's the reason why I'm doing it. If I saw, comprehensive data that this show was more harmful than helpful, then I guarantee you I would stop doing it. But so long as I think that it's helpful, I appreciate you guys supporting it. Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. If there are any questions that come up when I am not streaming, then hit me up. Do not be shy. DMs are open. You can email me through my website. You can join my Discord. That is a great resource for finding volunteer organizations or work that you can do, or just recommendations for podcasts or books. And it is a great way to get in touch. I want to be a resource for you guys. I want to help you do the work. I want to help you recruit more people to do the work. I want to help you get more educated about what's going on in the government. I want to help you be a more effective communicator. If you're just trying to learn about politics, I want to help you get more involved and more educated and informed. So if I can be a resource for you, I want you to use me. I want you to use me until I'm all used up. Use me and abuse me, my guys. Let's see here. Lastly, if you want to support the show financially, you can, but you don't have to. I have a Patreon that you can join for as little as $1 a month, and I have a store on my website that you can buy things from. Link is in my bio if you're interested in any of that, including the Discord. And also, you can send gifts and be a super fan on TikTok and Twitch and YouTube. There are all these different mechanisms by which you can send creators money on all these different channels that I'm not fully immersed in what it is. But if I'm sure you're being offered it by the platforms, like, do you want to send these creators money or some shit like that? And yeah, just please do the work, guys, because I'm worried. I'm worried about everybody. People that I love, people that I don't even know, I'm worried about. Things are getting more and more weird and dangerous every day that goes by. We are seeing wins. We are seeing the work, but the bad guys have a lot of power. They have a massive advantage right now, and so we need people to do the work to counteract all the things that they have done and are currently doing. Snake Jodes Michael says, I'm requesting. Well, I am leaving soon, so, there's not going to be you on this show. All right, thanks, everybody. Do the work. Be good to each other. We are not each other's enemies. The billionaires are the enemies. The Republican politicians are the enemies. Do not do violence. Only do nonviolent resistance. Be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work. Have a great weekend and do the work. And I will see you guys on Monday. Same bat chime, same bat channel. Take care, everybody.